We've got some
Hey,
fresh new
I'm
young
Luis.
talent
And
doing some
I'm
things that I
Luis.
know you haven't
And you're
heard
listening to the
before.
Content is Profit podcast. Sweet. Fonzie, welcome back. How you doing?
Appreciate it. I'm doing.
Happy Friday.
I'm surprised.
Why?
I walked into this room and I'm like, something looks different.
There's more
And I
space.
realized you redid the room for like the 20th time.
It's all good, man. It's gonna happen. We
Hey.
talked about the multiple, sets and different things. So
It's all good.
It's happening.
It's-
We're repurposing the room.
It's your house, so you deal with it however you want.
Yes, let's go. All right. With that said, guys, we have a special guest there. We met him a while back, and we finally were able to bring him to the show. He was off to Italy doing some vacationing things, and
Yeah, he was too big for us.
too big. But honestly, we're super stoked because he's part of the industry and the podcasting. They've done amazing things in content, and can't wait to dive deep into this conversation.
Absolutely. Make
Fonzie,
sure
you
you
good?
get your notepad, which I'm about to go grab right now.
All right. So we ready or no?
1 second.
Uh,
There we go. Now we're ready.
now we're ready.
You know it's going to be a good one when I pull the notepad.
I know.
All right, let's do it.
Fonzie, the analog boy, and Luisa, the digital boy. That's it. That's analog versus digital. There we go. Ready?
So fun.
Here we go.
We've got some
Hey,
fresh
I'm
new young
Luis.
talent
And this
doing
is
some
Luis.
things that I know
Welcome
you
to the
haven't
Content
heard
is
before.
Profit podcast.
In here, you're going to get the insights, accountability, and drive to create consistently and increase revenue.
You'll hear from top entrepreneurs, creators, and anything and everything you need to know about content. All this while having a good time.
The goal of this podcast is simple: entertain, educate, and turn your content into profit.
Let's go. Fonzie, what are we talking about today?
Guys, today, how to generate 12 million plus in revenue and 70 million plus content views or listens for your clients.
Crowd's going crazy.
Oh, I know.
That sounds like a lot. A lot of moolah.
Sounds like a lot.
a
Well,
lot of moolah.
we're gonna dive into the goodness with today's guest. For context, he's an awesome agency owner, and he's been dealing with lots of clients, some really big clients, kind of like ClickFunnels. He actually, I think he did stuff for Republic too. You remember we had Chuck on the podcast?
Chuck was awesome. Yes,
Yeah, so
absolutely.
You know, this guy knows
He's,
what he's talking
nodding.
about.
He's like, yeah, they're amazing. All right. Sounds good. If you guys are enjoying the show, go ahead and follow it. Make sure you're downloading each and every one of the episodes, all of them, because, we have new people in here and you want to share with everybody as well. So, share the love. Thank you. Is that good?
We need to streamline that part of the podcast.
I know. It's all good.
Guys, if
I like
today's
to riff.
episode
I like
help
to
you
riff.
move one step closer towards your goal, please don't forget to share it with somebody you care about and that you know this might help them take that next step. And don't forget to leave a 5-star review.
Sounds good, Fonzie. So we are back with one of the most exciting content agency owners out there. We have known today's guest for a while, but finally we got him on the pod.
That is right. Today's guest is the owner of Legacy Podcasting and the host of Content Funnels. Not to mention that he's the one person you'll see at every single event. We run to him like every single event.
True facts. Also, he has generated an impressive 12 million smackaroos for his clients while generating more than 70 million, that's 70 million impressions on their content. Epico!
Woo-wee! Guys, please welcome host of Content Funnels and legacy podcaster himself, Ryan Helms.
Man, that was quite the intro. I feel special.
Hey, but yeah, we gotta hype you up. We gotta launch the confetti. We left the confetti today, but it's a party.
Man. You are special, man. It's been so fun. We met so long ago, even before we actually started podcasting, and it's been fun to see your evolution with your agency, all the success that you guys are having, and it's really exciting to have you here on the show today, man. So thanks for coming out.
Yeah, I'm pumped to jam with you guys. Hopefully we can bring some value.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start the podcast strong. I know we're gonna go back and hear a little bit of your story, but so we can get people hooked from the very beginning. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the main concept of content funnels that you're using to drive revenue in your clients' businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Let's see, next month, December, will be 4 years that we've been in business with our agency. And I would say the first 2 years, we found something that most people discover at some point in their organic content journey. And that is that, attribution is really tough in organic content. Like it's like if you're selling something on the back end, you have a product, a service, a widget, whatever, like you're getting sales from this channel, this channel, this channel, but you don't really know like which one is actually working. So we implemented what we call content funnels, which is our way. It's like our marketing lingo, right? This is how we sell it to clients, right? Paint the vision in someone's head. A content funnel sits on top of your normal sales funnel, and it serves the purpose of creating attribution in your organic content. So typically, when we build out a content funnel for someone, it is going to sometimes like a really sexy, just lead magnet, like an old school, like downloadable. Most often it's going to like a master class or a mini course or something like that, but something that is highly tailored towards your audience, which is another reason it's important to create like really niche content so that when you create that offer, that it is like aligned very, very closely with that audience. But we help our clients craft and create this content funnel so that we can start to generate leads off of their content and then drop them into their existing sales funnel. Because most of our clients, they have very successful businesses already. They have the messaging and the mechanisms to nurture and convert people down the line. But our job with organic content being very, very top of funnel is to get them into their sales funnel. Because if all they do is ever consume your free content, like great for them, and you get some goodwill out of it, but you don't ever make any money. So what is that mechanism to bring people in? And that is the beginning piece of how you start to generate revenue with content. And then we can talk more about like, okay, what do you do with that content when they're in? How do you multi-purpose that content? How do you integrate it into the business to generate results? Like, there's a lot I can unpack there too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is what we call hashtag juicy, my friend. Like this 2-minute clip that you just shared with us, absolutely amazing. I'm pretty sure that somebody can leave right now and they're like already have an idea. Okay, now I know how to connect my content to my existing sales funnel, right? And just start feeding some leads in there. Now, you mentioned content funnel is kind of like your lingo for those listening right now. That is, and in my opinion, that is kind of like your UVP, your unique value proposition, right? That you're coming in is your own framework, I'm guessing as well, that you're coming towards your clients and you're sharing this with them and then you're hooking them and selling them your services, right? Which is absolutely amazing. So another kind of hashtag golden boulder in there for them is what is your unique point of view? What is your unique value proposition that you are presenting to your clients, right? Because how Todd Brown shared with us in the previous episodes, well, like 300 episodes ago, he shares that you need to have that kind of like unique mechanism, right? And I feel like this content funnels is yours, which is absolutely amazing.
And it kind of came to be because, 4 years ago when we got into this space, there wasn't near as many agencies doing similar stuff as we're doing. But as more and more came in, and we were like, oh shit, man, we have to like differentiate ourselves. Like, how do we set ourselves apart from all the other people that are coming in the space? Because most of the time when things start to get competitive, it's people that are trying to compete on price. And I don't ever want to try to be a low cost leader. So what do we do? How do we position ourselves to where like no one can literally offer what we offer? We just got it registered. It's a registered trademark now. It took like 2 years, but Content Funnels is a registered trademark. And that's so now literally no one can sell what we sell, right? As the idea of a content funnel. So you're absolutely right. It was like, how do we make sure that when we get in front of a client, they're like, I've never heard that before. Like, tell me more about that. That's what's interesting.
Yeah, dude, I think you guys nailed it right there. It's going to be like a pot of gold for you guys. Because also, I mean, people search funnels, right? And content. I feel like those are two key terms that honestly put together have a lot of power. And you also name your podcast, right? Content Funnels. And I think you rebranded your podcast, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, as you guys were kind of going back and forth on this idea, in my head, I'm thinking systems, right? Like on my side, I'm the operator you know, and in BIZBROS, and my head goes there always. Like, okay, Fonzie comes with an idea, and sometimes I get super overwhelmed. Like, oh, it's because I go there, right? Instead of like, hey, what's the first step? And once we execute on that first step, everything becomes it gathers momentum, right? So for somebody that's listening right now, I'm like, okay, you know, I have these pieces. I might not have the full picture of like how my content is doing, or are we actually selling, right? And as we discover backends of different companies, right, even those sales numbers can be unclear at some point, right? They have no idea where the leads are coming from. So what is a very good first step for somebody that wants to move into that direction? They want to take action, right? They're already creating some kind of content, and they want to optimize and start building their content funnel.
Yeah, I would say the first thing is the more diversified your lead sources are, the more important this is. So if you're spending a lot in paid, a lot in influencer, like et cetera, like the more important it is to have attribution and clarity on your organic stuff, right? If you're just a normal, if you just have a podcast and it's like a side thing, like this is probably at least the depths in which we'll discuss it here is probably overkill. Right.
Yeah.
But the more complex your lead sources are, the more this stuff becomes important. So I just wanted to highlight that first.
Absolutely.
But in terms of like the setup, a couple things that we do just to kind of talk through it. One is if you're thinking about content, let's stick to podcasts for right here. Because you can craft this for really any medium, but let's just talk podcast here. Most of the time, for some reason, people save their call to actions for the end of the podcast, right? It's like their outro. It's like, hey, you know, like go follow me here, go do this if you're interested. And it's at the very end. Just keep in mind, that's when literally the fewest amount of people will be listening to your content. Yep. So why put the thing you want them to do when literally probably 10% of the people that click play, if you're lucky, will actually hear that at the end. So that's like the first, like, no, right? Don't put it at the end. What we like to do with our content funnels, and we can talk about crafting that, but let's just assume you have something in your business that you can use for this theoretical content funnel, kind of lead magnet, right? That master class, that mini course, whatever it is. We like to bake that into the actual intro of the show. So we like our intros to be short and sweet, because we want to get into the content as quickly as possible. And like how you guys started out here with like, let's don't talk about what school you went to, how many kids you have, what your dog's name is. Like, you got to skip all that. Just like get your people want to hear the good conversation. So,
but wait, you have a dog?
Yeah, dude, he's a big dog. So like when we're crafting and I'm saying that we're putting that into the intro, it doesn't mean we have a 60-second intro. We're trying to keep them like 20 seconds long. Yeah. And we never get specific with our call to action. Now, this is contrary to some like what you might hear normally in the marketing world. People are saying like, if you have a call to action, it needs to be very deliberate. But the reason we're not deliberate and we try to keep it evergreen is because who knows 2 years, 3 years now, how your business is going to evolve. And if you have a call to action baked into your episode, it should be somewhat relevant. Again, there's probably some cases even when this isn't accurate, but it should be somewhat relevant into the future as well. So if you have like a phrase or a saying or something like that you give to your audience, I can give you an example from a client we had, Allison Prince, somebody you guys might know in the funnel space. Like it's changed now, but the original call to action in her intro was, if you want to start living your because I can life, go here. And it was the URL. So we didn't promise what they were going to get or anything, but it was just like, hey, if you're digging this and you're about this life, like go here. And that page converted at like 74%. It was crazy. Wow. And all it was downloadables to her like manifesto, right? Her like community mantra of sorts, right? It was like the iPhone desktop wallpaper, like all this stuff. It converted like crazy. And that got people into her big sales funnel after that, right? They got the free thing from the content, then they dripped into her sales funnel. And now we have attribution, because when they opt into that thing, they're tagged in the CRM as podcast, right? And so now we have some clarity into, okay, podcast people buy twice as much as non-podcast opt-ins and stuff like that, right? So that's like a big piece of it. And then if you're going to have some call to actions for whatever it is your content offer is, and just to specify something there. We've got a content funnel, but within that content funnel, we just call it, we're very original. We just call it the content offer. So the content offer is that mechanism. It's that masterclass. It's that mini course. It's that thing. And sometimes we'll run mid-roll ads. Again, super short. Like everything we do is trying to keep people on the content. We're not trying to create a bad experience for them that's going to drive them away, but we do understand we have a business outcome that we're trying to achieve. So somewhere that 20 to 40% range into the episode, we'll input a 10 to 15 second quick little mid-roll ad. Again, tie it in. Sometimes it's right back into the content. Sometimes the client will do that organically, but sometimes it's like tough for them to keep that top of mind and weave it in. Seems like you guys would be awesome at it though. So I don't know.
This is so funny because yesterday, literally after the podcast that we recorded, we're sitting down and I'm like, dude, do you know what we should do? I think we should start doing like mid-roll organic ads. Literally in the middle of the show, be like,
we're like, hey Ryan, do you got a second? Okay, yes.
We're
so by the
back.
way, if you're all about the content is profit live, just go to contentisprofit.com, join the Facebook group, you're in the community, and come hang out. All right, example, right?
Yeah, but we're like, we should do like a full-on skit. Like when we say that, like come up with, like fake stashes for my brother because he doesn't have one.
A stash.
Like whatever it is, and just like make it like a little skit. So I'm cracking up here because you're kind of like reinforcing that idea, and I'm like, oh man, this is so cool. You guys already tested it.
Let's be clear. He's reinforcing the ad, not the fake mustache that I'm gonna.
And if you want somebody that does that piece of it, that kind of organic ad spot, like better than anyone I've ever heard, is Andrew Warner from Mixergy. I don't know if you guys have ever listened to, dude. He crushes that. That is like his hidden talent, is just like how he can weave in these ad spots into just the natural conversation. And it's almost like it's all scripted, like how well he can flow it in together.
That's awesome.
I'm taking a note here. I'm going to go check that out because that is definitely caught my attention.
Yeah. Rand, this is awesome. It's coming from somebody that has been in the industry for many years, which is great, right? And you guys are doing this every single day. My question is, right, because when we launched the podcast, for the first 6 months, we were like, we're not going to look at data at all. We're like, we need to conquer consistency. We need to be consistent on this thing. And then you start seeing that data. You start like identifying, your 7-day trends, your 30-day trends, like on the content itself, right? Is it actually resonating? Is people sticking? Like how many episodes do they listen to? When is a good time, apart from since episode 1? I'm a big fan from episode 1, but right. A lot of the questions that we get is like, when do we actually see that transfer from the podcast to an actual lead to an actual customer, right? Like, does the podcast need to be at a certain level? It might vary per industry. I don't know, but have you seen a trend on how big does a podcast need to be for this to actually be a consistent flow?
Yeah. So I would say it actually has nothing to do with the podcast.
Awesome.
It has to do with the offer that you're sending them to, the messaging on that page, how you deliver the message leading up to that. So I guess that piece does have to do with the podcast, but the podcast is a tool. It's a mechanism. It's like a transfer point. But if you're transferring them to something that has bad copy on it, it's a weak offer, it's not aligned with your audience, you're going to need 1 million people to get one conversion, right? But I'll give you an example. A client of ours, you guys were just in Boise, possible you met him, a guy named Kevin Clayson. He runs a business called, he's co-founder of Done For You Real Estate. Okay. They did about 250,000 in revenue within the first 10 episodes of the show, and they only had about 7,000 downloads on the show in total. Actually, sorry, 3,500 downloads on the show in total within the first 10 episodes.
Moment of success here to all the people that think that they need millions of downloads, right? No, you don't. So thank you. Right.
Well, and let me explain how that came to be, because one, they're in real estate, right? So there's some troll out there who's like, but their transactions are really big. Yes, that is true. But let me explain, like, because I mentioned earlier that you have the piece where you get their email, right? That the content offer, that's kind of the main part of the content funnel. But how do you integrate that content into the business downstream? So I said the more bigger, or not the more bigger, the bigger your podcast is, and the more complex it is, you in your business as well, you have the opportunity to look for ways to integrate that into your business. So in this example, what happened was, they had been growing an email list for like 11 years, right? And all they had ever done is send them, like, again, this is a real estate company, just like boring emails that were like, here's the deals we have on the market. So like their audience, or their email audience, was just used to kind of getting these emails that maybe they skim, probably don't open, and just quickly archive. But when we launched the podcast, each episode got its own kind of story-based email that kind of told this story, brought people into the content. And this lady had been on their email list for 11 years and ended up doing like 150,000 in revenue with them. Like in 150, that's not like one house, right? $150,000 house. That's like revenue, like profit that they brought in. She bought 11 houses with them.
Wow.
That's amazing.
And it came from, she was like, I got your email. Then I started listening to the podcast, and she was like, I had like no idea that you guys did all of this. And it's so clear that you know your stuff, because I just listened to 10 episodes and like, I'm ready to transact. Same thing. Another guy, he just sold his software company. This is that same kind of first few months thing. He was like, hey, I've got X millions of dollars that I'm ready to deploy in real estate. I want you guys to help me do that. Right. And it was the podcast that built the trust that someone shared to this guy who had just sold his software company. And so like, there's other utilities of the content in your business. You just have to figure out how to weave them in.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. That is a really good case study, which I'm not gonna lie, I was on your website and you guys do a great job at highlighting those things. It's like right there, smack in the very front of the website. So yeah, pretty good, pretty good. I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, right? Like you said, there's some trolls that they're saying like, oh, their transactions are huge. This devil's advocate segment is not specific to that industry. But, you know, people are like, okay, I have my podcast, I have my email, my story-based emails, I have my content funnel, my content offer. I have everything set up, but I don't have people's attention, right? Now, are you driving attention to your people's podcasts and funnels with paid traffic? Or is it all organic? Or maybe you're leveraging already the audiences that they have. Maybe it's a mix of everything.
Yeah, we spend about $1 million a year on paid traffic. No, I'm joking. We don't do any paid traffic.
I was like, damn.
We don't do. We've never done any paid traffic. Any of the numbers that I've said is 100% all organic. I wish we were talented enough to do a lot of paid traffic, but it's just it's not our expertise. It's not the lane that we run in. So yeah, that's all organic. And I'll kind of unpack that a little bit. You guys are entertaining, right? You come on, you put on a show at the beginning, right? You make it interesting. What a lot of people get wrong, they think just because they publish content that people should listen. That's not the case. Rewind 8 years ago, maybe that's a different story. There's a lot of people publishing content right now. How are you different? How are you just another Me Too? Or are you just another person creating content on X topic? Like, people forget that people listen not only for the topics, but for the person. Do you think that Joe Rogan is the biggest podcast in the world because people love every single topic that he chooses to talk about? Or do people love Joe Rogan? It's because they love the person. So like the affinity for the person brings the people. So if your show isn't growing, it might be you, not the content. And that's a hard pill for some people to swallow.
Oh yeah.
I love this. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is a good part.
Yeah. Are you done with your devil's advocate section?
Yeah. No, that was pretty good. I mean, good. I feel like I want to build up a little bit on that. I want to let you take over so you don't kind of like come at me like, oh, you hug the mic, but it's all good.
We've talked a lot about the experience, right? Of this, right? We talk about the platform, right? Whether that's a podcast, whether that's a YouTube channel, like what's your platform? And then what's the experience that you can create with that person that you're connecting with? So in this case, you, Ryan, right? and then after that, like what that experience looks like, because that's the first person in the audience is your guest, right? So if you're utilizing your platform to create opportunities, whatever those look like, right? Referrals, just friendship, connections, opportunities, like on the back end, that's super important. But at the same time, right, that also applies to the people that are listening and consuming your content right off the bat. One of the number one comment we get every single time is, I love your energy, right? Like that's the one thing that we're like, perfect. Like that's the thing that we need to lean on. And like, how else can we refine that experience in our show to create a memorable thing, not only for our guests, but for the people that are coming in, right? And every single time we're going into that. And it's been funny because we've been highlighting some of the interviews that we did in the first like 100 episodes, right? And you can see the difference. You can see the difference in the conversations from today versus the difference from the conversations from like a year ago, right? 2 years ago. And we're like, where is the gap, right? And the gap comes from consistency and putting in the show and improving on the feedback that we get from everybody, like the cues that our guest tells us. And what you're saying is so important, right? Because that's how you level up the podcast consistently over time. And then, right, that trust, that authority, all these elements go up, and then they can make the transaction with you later on.
I'm curious, right? How do you deal with somebody if you get a client that maybe lacks on the personality side, right? Maybe he's a little bland on the podcast, or that you see like there is potential improvement on the attractive character side of things. How do you deliver that to them, and how do you work on that with them as well?
Yeah, good question. I'll start with saying I don't think this is for everybody. Like we've had clients come in, and as someone that that runs an agency, you know, I've struggled with this from a like, am I taking their money standpoint and knowing they aren't going to be successful. But here's where I landed on this. As an agency owner, it's my job to put them in the best chance possibly to succeed. And if I feel like myself and my organization are the ones that can do that, it is my obligation to help them try to achieve their desired result. That does not change my opinion that I think that this isn't for everyone. I'm just going to explore that with them, try to coach them as best as I possibly can, give them the best tips and tricks on what to do, what not to do. But at the end of the day, if their personality, like who they are, like deep rooted down as an individual, isn't built for this, like you can't fit a square in a round hole, like that. And that's what some people are trying to do. If you gave it 4, 5, 10 years, maybe, but most people either financially can't afford to work with someone like us for that long on an experimental basis, or B, they don't want to work on it that long. So
makes sense. And this is my personal opinion here, a little parenthesis, but I personally don't think that everybody needs to be high energy on camera, right? But
sure. Look at like Friedman.
Yeah, there are definitely different types of attractive characters that are going to attract people. And I think a lot of the times it's just the length of which you stay in the game for you to attract the people that are going to relate to your personality and your energy as well.
Yeah.
Right? So like you said,
think about this. Like you said that what is a differentiating factor for you guys is the energy you bring, right? It's the camaraderie between you two, plus the energy that you guys bring, right? That there you go. That makes people want to listen and consume this content. You look at someone like Lex Friedman. He's very monotone, very soft spoken, but what is his unique differentiator? One, it's his background, right? MIT professor, like super talented. Like his unique differentiator is his mind, is his intellectual capacity. People want to hear from someone that smart, right? He has the credentials to make people go like, oh man, like, you know, this dude might not be the most entertaining, but I have to envision he's going to be able to teach me something I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I like how you mentioned that unique differentiator, right? You have the unique value proposition that we talked on at the very beginning when it comes to your frameworks, the way you deliver your content, but then you have your unique differentiator when it comes to your attractive character, right? And I think it's important for people to look at themselves in the mirror and ask themselves, what is my unique differentiator?
Yeah.
Right? Is it my experience? Is it maybe my ability to go and be the reporter, which I feel it was our case at the very beginning.
Yeah.
We were seeking all these interviews to report back to our audience, but at the same time, we found that is our energy that we bring, and kind of like the show and the silliness, right? Like me choking my brother right now, for example. Like it just adds a little layer in there.
Yeah, I think it's very important for people if they're in a position where they're trying to develop this platform, right? And in the conversation that we had yesterday, we talked about bigger companies, right? Leadership teams, and how maybe if the CEO or somebody on the leadership team needs to be like an attractive character and really take on that role of media company, right? That every company should be having, or like needs to have, or I don't want to say should, but again, like you do really have to. The companies that don't evolve as a media company are going to have a really hard time, right? So who's that one person, right? And in this process, there's going to be a lot of personal growth. And I go back to even a year before we launched your show, a year before we met you, Ryan, like we tried this thing, right? And we didn't have the personalities. We're trying to like model somebody, and the format was not there. There was a lot of friction, right, in the process, on not only internally, but out there. Like we were adding all these things. And we grabbed the equipment after 5 times and put it in the closet, and it lasted there for a full year collecting dust, right? And it wasn't until we made peace with the fact that, hey, here is our level in creation mode, right? Here's our level. We got to be very honest with ourselves, and we're okay with that, and we're just going to go, right? And I think a lot of people skip that part. They don't even go, and they don't look inwards, right? And be like, hey, am I okay with this, right? Especially if you are in a leadership team, right? If you're in a leadership team, maybe your personal development is, at a point you would think, but still, when it comes to you being in that phase, it can be challenging. So, looking back at your journey with your podcast, right? Because you have a very successful podcast as well. How was that process for you? How were you? How do you find your unique, differentiator? How do you move forward?
Yep. Awesome question. And I was actually just thinking about this recently. So it's definitely top of mind. So the unique differentiator we've been talking about so far is the individual. You have to remember that there's something else that can be a unique differentiator, and that is the actual content itself. So if something's going to be different, it can be you as an individual, or it can be some facet of the content. And if we look at the content in particular, so on the recent episodes of Content Funnels, my podcast, the interviews, they're all short. They're all less than 15 minutes. So the differentiator I was going after in this scenario was, I was saying, okay, there's a lot of people doing interviews like we're doing right now. This is a long form interview where we're talking about content, right?
Yeah.
How can I be different than content is profits? How can Content Funnels be different than content is profit, right? So my angle was like, well, I'm going to interview people, but essentially we're just going to deep dive on one very specific topic, and it's going to be short and sweet. So that was a mechanism I used to differentiate myself from a show like this, right?
Yep.
That's just one way to do it. It could be that maybe you only do solo episodes. Maybe you do interviews and they're all 3 hours long. Like, I don't know, but there's a lot of things that you can do to differentiate how you do it. If you look at one that does this really well is what's it called? Side Hustle School. Chris Belio or Chris something, right? I forget his last name. But it's all scripted. So there's a lot of people sharing these like startup, side hustle, entrepreneurial type stories, but his are all scripted. And that's his unique differentiator. So like, what can you do outside of yourself? How can you structure your show to make it different? And that's kind of what I've done.
Awesome. I love this. Right. So follow-up question to this, and then Fonzie, you good?
I'm good too. You're like, hug the mic.
Hug the mic. It's my turn. You mentioned earlier, and this is going to circle back to this moment, right? You circle back, you're like, hey, we have this idea and we put it out there. It's like our hypothesis, is it going to work, right? How long before you decide to pivot, right? Because we all know that content, especially podcasting, is about the long term, where long vision, like over time. So do you even pivot, right? Do you commit with this what's your decision? What are your thoughts around this, right? Because we started with interviews, right, on our side on that. Well, we actually started with solo episodes for like 20, and then we're like, we're running out of things to say. We need to learn more. Let's go and find the experts, right? So we brought the experts in our network. We started having those conversations, and then fast forward, now there's a mix of this, something a little bit more specific, something more casual, and our solo episodes as well. And it's been a very awesome balance, right? So how do you decide when you need to pivot, when you're like, yeah, this did not work, let's go, right?
Yeah, so pivot on like the unique differentiator of your show. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, for example, you decided to do very short,
Yep.
15-minute, very specific conversations, and you're like, okay, this is either working or not working. How do you consider that? And then what's your process to pivot, if you pivot?
Yeah, so I'll give you, because I'm actually pivoting mine right now. So I'll kind of walk through why that's happening and what drove me to that. So you said that content is a long-term play. I highly, highly, highly agree with that. Like I tell people, like if you're coming in, and this is like an anti-sales tactic, but this is what I do in my sales process. I'm like, hey, if you're not willing to commit to this for a year, I probably wouldn't start. Because this isn't a 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 4 month type of thing. Like this is like bare minimum, like get into this game for a year.
The audience is going wild.
Yeah.
The audience is going wild.
They made a comeback.
Yeah. So like you gotta be in this for the long game. And so what I did was I was looking at the conversations I was having, and I personally wanted to get deeper into the conversations. I looked at the outcome that I was trying to drive with my podcast. I'm not trying to drive people to sign up for a masterclass or a mini course or whatever this thing is. Like I'm targeting, my goal with my show is relationships. And typically most of the time in all the conversations I've had, there's two goals that are being sought after from a client. They're either looking for more massive downloads, reach, exposure, which is typically tied back to like, I want opt-ins and leads and stuff like that. So that's goal one. Goal two is relationships. The strategies around the content with these two goals are very different. So when I looked at the goal that I'm trying to have, which is relationships, the format of the show that I had was not conducive to the result that I was trying to get with my show. So I opted to switch up my unique differentiating factor around the shorter interviews to focus on longer stuff. So that's just a quick on me personally on why I did that.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm sure it's going to help somebody that's going through that at the same moment asking the same question, right? So
I will say, don't let that be your out though. Don't give yourself an excuse to change. Don't like seek out the reason that isn't there. Like, well, Ryan said that he wanted to do it, and this has been difficult, so maybe I should try that. Like that, oftentimes that's the wrong way to approach it. Like there has to be like some logical reason you want to make this switch.
Yeah. How do you, Fonzie, question for you. Like, have you ever thought about pivoting the show?
Never. Not even once. I've had ideas of starting other shows with different formats, right? Same energy, different formats. I really like
host.
Maybe a co-host. No co-host.
No co-host.
I mean, we all know who carries this show over here.
Idea.
But
this is fun because I was actually thinking about this morning. Same in my head. There's many ideas of shows and different things, and at some point we'll build a network. Maybe not our own shows, but collaborating with other people. But idea just to like document the experience. Fonzie launches a show, I launch a show, different styles, different things, right? Like committing to like the things that we really want to talk about and document.
Pick a bro.
Hashtag pick a bro, legit, and see what happens. And I think that could be like a really cool experiment to do. And within the companies, I mean, the goal is to still talk about, the things that we do. It's just Fonzie has his style, I have my style, and then we'll probably attract people that are along those lines as well. So I think that could be a cool experiment. Putting that idea out there. Sorry.
Hashtag pick a bro networks. This one's going to be fun. Ryan, we're getting close towards the end and I have so many more questions to ask you, but we're going to leave those for next part.
Part two.
But before we head out, right, we like to leave people with an action point, something that they can go and do immediately. So if somebody is trying to start implementing their content funnels, right, besides obviously calling you and committing to work with you for a year, what else should they do? What would be that first step if, let's say, they are starting their platform, a podcast, and they want to start, kind of like connecting their podcast to their profits?
Yeah. I'm going to give you an answer that I want to give that doesn't necessarily completely tie to what you're saying there. So to give people like something actionable they can do, because again, I've been, I'm not going to pitch it here, but I'm working on a course in the background. So I've really been formulating some of these ideas in the past. And here's one that I really believe in. So a lot of times people are trying to find a new audience, right? More, not new is a bad word. They're trying to find new people to come into their audience, right? More listeners, more this, more that. And they're not focusing on how do you get the people you already have listening more. So this, if you look at, let's say you have 1,000 followers or subs on your podcast, right? If you're only getting 20% of those people to press play on your episode, you that's only 200 of the 1,000. Instead of going out seeking more, why don't we figure out how to cover that 800 gap? Like, how do we turn that into 400, 600? And the thing that I see over and over that I think podcasters get wrong is how they title their episodes. This is very super basic and super plain, but people have very boring, generic titles. And so when someone's in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is, they're going to their shows and they're like, here's the shows that were released today. Which one do I want to listen to? On YouTube, you have the thumbnail, which is the first thing that catches someone's attention, right? And then the title confirms their decision to click on the episode, click play. On a podcast, all you have is the title. Most of the time, the cover art thumbnail is really, really small on these podcast episodes when you're looking in like an episode, like a recently released feed. So you only have the title of the episode. So you need to be thinking about your podcast episode titles no different than you would think about an email subject line or a YouTube title. The goal is to get someone to click play. It serves no other purpose at all except for getting someone to click play. And if it's not getting someone to click play, something's wrong. So focus on the audience that you have and converting more of those people before you spend a lot of effort bringing in more people into a leaky bucket.
Yeah, that's good. You want to know why my brother's looking at me all weird like that? Because we've had this discussion about, I know you're not talking about clickbait, but we've had this discussion about clickbait where I'm like, bro, that's a very thin line, and I'm okay with it as long as we deliver on the promise, right? Like, this is like, you can make it obviously super shiny and everything. And I agree with you. Like, the goal is to get people to click. And then once they click, how are you hooking them to listen to the rest of the episode? But you gotta deliver the promise. And I'm not gonna lie, we've been guilty a few times here and there of making these awesome promises in the title. And then we speak for an hour with our guest and we don't get to what we promised. And then we have to like bring them a second time. And we're like, oh, you remember that one time, like 50 episodes ago?
Yeah.
So it's a very thin line, but I think that it's key. And people need to understand those little elements. Like, nobody's going to consume anything of you if you cannot get their immediate attention through those headlines.
And right, last minute, I know that you have to, and if you have to go, just hang up. It's okay. We'll keep talking.
We can roll over a little bit.
Yeah, very, very tactical, right? And I think this has helped us a ton is depending on like where you publish your podcast, we use a software called Megaphone, right? You can see the 7-day downloads and then the 30-day spread after that, right? So if for us, there's an indicator, if that 7-day number is higher than usual, that means that headline, right, attracted a lot of attention. But then what we see is the consumption, right? So you can see this on your Apple podcast. More than 50% of our downloads come from Apple. So we kind of look at that data especially, and you can see how long people are actually staying to listen to that show. So if that's a low number, a low percentage, you're like, oh, okay, well, the title was on point, but we might have not delivered on that promise, so that's why people are leaving, right? And then if you have that percentage on the consumption higher, you're like, okay, maybe this is a good example of an episode that we did a good job with the title and a good job with the delivery of the content. So those are two tactical things that you can actually, if you have a podcast right now, you can actually go look in your data And for us, it's helped us a ton because it's showing us like where are actually people listening, what type of content do they actually like. Like, for example, your episode with like short form versus long form content, which was, I think, 2 episodes ago, did really well. People listening about 80%.
I tell you, who's carrying this podcast, huh?
He does. He does.
I'll give you a funny example that really will drive this point home. So we had a client that we got on a monthly call with, just kind of like deep diving into their analytics and all that kind of stuff. And so we go into the back end of Apple Podcasts, just like you said, and we sort on average consumption time, lowest to highest, right? So worst episodes at the top in terms of retention and consumption. What we found was the 4 lowest episodes in terms of consumption were all episodes in which she interviewed men. So her audience is very female focused. All but the 4 interviews were female guests, and the 4 lowest were guys. So like her takeaway was, and rightfully so, like maybe I shouldn't interview guys anymore because it doesn't resonate with my audience, because her audience is stay-at-home moms that are like 45 to 55. So look at the data and you can have some really profound takeaways. I think that average consumption number is the best data point in all of podcast stats. I don't think there's anything that can help you make better decisions than that particular stat.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually having me question my accent. So that's how bad it is. No, I'm kidding. But anyways, Ryan, dude, this has been so awesome. Again, thank you for coming onto the show, on the platform. Is there anything that you like to add, or how can people connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, just hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. It's Ryan Helms, ITSRYANHELMS on Instagram. Happy to chat. And that's it.
Awesome. I'm gonna add another way to find you. Just go to any event, you'll find him. He's everywhere. He's there. He's in all the events.
All the events.
Yeah, man, it was good to chat with you guys.
Yeah,
Sweet.
It was awesome.
Fonzie, anything else?
Matt, this was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. We're definitely going to have to bring you a second time to do a little bit. I would like to deep dive on the what comes before the content funnel, right? Like get a little nitty gritty strategy. We'll bring like our night goggles and all that stuff.
We'll do that episode. We'll do that for the group. Exclusive.
Exclusive. I
awesome.
like it.
All right. With that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Content is Profit podcast. Go ahead and follow the show in your favorite platform and on social media at BIZBROS Co.
That is right. And if Ryan here help you move one step closer towards your goal, please don't forget to share this episode and leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye, guys.